Hi everyone, welcome back to Winging It. We're on week 7 and as it's Valentine's Day tomorrow, I thought that our word prompt for this week should be hearts. So grab all your sewing equipment, grab some fabric, some felt, some beads and buttons, whatever you want to use, and let's get into it. Okay, so this week I thought I'd work on this lovely frosty lilac colour. And I've been thinking about how my page is going to fit together, and I'd like to bring some of the minty greens that we use in this one into this panel. So what I've got here are I've got a little scrap of the mint felt, and I've got some scraps of fabric that have got some lilacs, and there's a lovely section of minty green there, and I've just got some bits of quilting cotton that have got some minty green bits in as well, just to tie it all together. And I've got a little tiny bit of pale blue because that brings in some of the blue as well. So what I thought we'd do is make use of some of our applique skills, and we haven't done any lettering so far this month, so I think I'm going to put some wording. I've just put "Love Never Fails" down the side, and I'm tipping it so that not everything is facing in the same direction. And what I thought I would do is just use my different applique skills to just make a load of hearts on the panel, and then add some overstitching just like we normally do using our threaded and whipped stitches. So this is where I'm heading. I'm just going to sketch out my design with my heat erasable pen. I've got my design sketched out on my piece, and so what I'm going to do is some of these are going to be reverse appliqued, some of them will be added on to the surface. Now if you want to use Bondaweb, go for it. I'm just going to keep it fairly simple. Now I think this one is the fabric that best brings the colour palette together, so I'm going to make sure I've got a bit of mint. I don't really want any yellow showing, so I'm just thinking about where I need to make my rectangle. Sort of there, and that bit of yellow isn't going to show through, I don't think. I'm hoping not anyway. So I'm just going to cut myself a little rectangle. So I know that covers, so I'm just going to pin it in the middle of the heart, and I'm going to use my old trick of holding it up to the light just to make sure I've got my bit of green. I don't really want it totally central, my bit of green, so I'm just going to have a bit of a play to make sure it's going to cover the heart. So if I just straighten that up on the back, yeah, I'm fairly sure that's right. Crikey, sending my pincushion flying. So I'm just going to tack this in place. I've just got a bit of white thread here. And I think I'm going to reverse applique this one as well, and so I'm going to get that minty section. I quite like this section of this fabric because it's got that sort of ferny palm frond leaf thing going on, which I really like, and I think it'll look nice with the leaves sort of coming in from the side of the heart. So just pinning that and tacking that one as well. So I'm going to do a whipped back stitch around the outside of this, so I'm just going to back stitch around the heart. If you're new to winging it and you're not sure how to do back stitch, I'll just put a card at the top of the screen so that you can find your way to our stitch tutorial where we looked at backstitch. Okay, I think that looks really nice. I'm liking the mixture. Now I'm going to take out my tacking just because I want to trim back the fabric behind now that I've stitched it in. So I'm just going to draw out my tacking stitches, and on the back, because I've done backstitch, I've got a line that I can use to guide me, so I'm just going to trim it back a little bit. So I've trimmed my fabric back at the back, so what I'm going to do now is take out, I'm going to add some decoration onto this, but I'm just going to take out this felt so that you can get a sense of what we're trying to do. So I've just made a little hole with my seam ripper, and I'm just very carefully going to snip around the outside. Obviously I'm not going right up to my stitches, there's a tiny border. Okay, so if I take that out, you can see I've got my fabric showing through from the back. It's looking a little bit lumpy at the moment, but when I press it, it'll be fine. Now I've got a heart here that I can use on another piece at a later date, so I'm not going to throw that away, I'm just going to keep hold of it. That's the reverse applique one. This one is also going to be reverse applique, but I also want to do some surface applique, so I'm going to use a bit of felt. I think I'm just going to do this tiny little one down here. I'm thinking about the distribution of my colours. Okay, so here's my little felt applique heart, and I'm just going to attach that with some normal sewing cotton. Again, if you're not sure how to do applique, I'll put a card at the top of the screen again, and it'll take you to our applique video. And the first section of that talks about raw edge applique with felt. Okay, so I've appliqued on my little felt heart, and I thought I could do some turned edge applique. So again, this part of that video is all about turned edge applique. So I've got my waxed paper. Now this is curved, so I'm going to have to do a little bit of snipping. This whole process is explained in the applique video. And we've got a point here, so I'm just going to chop the bottom off. So I'm going to pop this one up here. Now you have to remember that you're lining up your paper shape rather than your fabric, because the excess fabric will be turned under. So and I'm going to start with a straight edge and just applique that on. Okay, so that's my needle turned applique heart on. So I'm just going to add the rest of these hearts, and then we'll come back and do some decorative stitching. Okay, so I've done all my bits of applique. So these two and this one are reverse applique, this one's needle turned applique, and these are just three little felt hearts that I've added on. I'm going to do a whipped back stitch of the lettering. I'll show you that at the end, but I'm just going to add some decorative stitching around these hearts. So on this one, so if I bring this closer, you should be able to see that I've got a double layer of stitching around that heart, and I've done back stitch around those two. I'm going to weave this one, and I'm starting right in the middle, and I'm going to do that in and out. I've just got some embroidery thread here, 2 strands, and if you are finding that your needle is picking up the pile of the felt, if you're working on felt, you can always use the eye end of your needle. So this one, I think I'm going to do Pekingese stitch, and I'm going to have my loops going into the heart, I think. Okay, so I've added in some decorative stitching. I'm going to carry on with that, and I will come back and show you the finished piece. Okay, so here's my finished panel. I've put in my lettering, I used whipped back stitch, and I used some of that silky machine thread so that it's got a bit of a sheen to it. I've added my little button down here, and I've just added in some decorative stitching just around on the hearts, just to tie it all together. And I've tried to mix up the colours all around so that there's some harmony. And if I bring in my trusty Applique that I like to use, you can see the effect when I trim it back, so that's what it will look like when it's finished. That's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed making our panel, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what you all come up with the prompt of hearts. Don't forget to share your creations to #FSHWingingIt, and if you also add #FSHWingingIt7, you'll be able to see all of the other pieces that people have created with this prompt. So happy stitching, have a great week, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!